everybody, and this is DJ Kitzel, and he is going to represent the nature-based concept of our speaker series. It's called Living a Connected Life, and the idea basically came from, as Buddhists, we think of people, helping people with meditation, and how meditation is good for you. But when we started meeting all these people who were healthy eaters, we go, eating healthy is good for you. And then we started meeting other people that do different forms of exercise. We lead martial arts, and we thought, that's good for you too. But I started seeing all these things where it's all interconnected. So it's not like, well, if I go for a walk today, that'll help me. But that's going to help me. That's going to benefit my blood pressure. That's going to give me fresh air. That's going to benefit my biome. That's going to benefit my spirituality. It's interconnected. Most people think of mind, body, spirit as, I should do this mind thing. I should do this body thing. I should do this spirit thing. But if you do any one of those mind, body, spirit things, you automatically get all three. So that's where you take over. Thank you for coming.
All right.
And
thank you. And
we'll announce the next one soon.
Let's give a round of applause. Thank you very much. We're so happy, so honored to have you here. Thank you so much.
Sure. I'm honored to be here. My name is DJ Kitzel, and I know that 2 hours has been allocated for this.
It'll be however long you feel comfortable.
15 minutes.
Great.
And then I'd like to discuss and just chat with you all. Because sometimes talking to folks about their experience in the natural world is kind of like talking to Noah about the Johnstown flood, because you all had your experiences. So I'm gonna. I love having a wee one here. That's great. Years ago, I started a couple programs of writers and books called Where's Writer and Where's Walden, and I didn't know where to begin. Where do you start? And then I found out that the best place to start with kids is writing is with animal stories, because everybody has one. Every kid, as soon as they can talk, they've got animal stories. And every kid that would come to this camp's like, I got a cat. I saw a possum in my backyard. And I was like, everyone has stories about animals. And so it was like, the best lead-in for me was just to tell me your animal stories to our first little journal director, John in the Woods. And, yeah. And I noticed he lit up when he saw my little, the first sounds. Before we can speak our language, I'd say, what does the dog say? What does the kitty cat say and stuff? We have this affinity. And years ago, this man named Marshall Rosenberg, I was out in Oakland, California, and he said, if you don't believe that we all want to contribute to the well-being of other life forms, just see the look on a child's face when he's feeding a duck. And as it happened, I just happened to have a picture of my son feeding a duck and a rearview mirror thing, fold down sunblock, and my eyes are, and he's delighted. Just going out to the canal and you can see the delight. So E.O. Wilson had a term for that. It's called biophilia. The instinctive, inherent love that as human beings we have a need to nurture other life forms and contribute to the well-being of other life forms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you DJ's history of world religion in under 6 minutes. Truncated, of course. But first I want to tell you how I came to do this history of world religions in under 6 minutes. I've worked as a guide for an outfitter called Pakowski for 27 years. And I was very fortunate in that for about, 18 or 20 of those years, I lost count, to work with Hindu Heritage Camp out in Penfield, New York. What a lot of folks in Rochester don't know is that Hindu families from all over North America, and as far away as Kuwait, send their kids to Penfield, New York to learn their heritage. Now, one of the interesting things about Hinduism, very earth-based religion, very earthy in so many ways, Shiva stuff, and very beautiful. But a lot of the children who grow up now in affluent homes are very disconnected from the natural world. So they hire me and our outfit to come and just spend a day with these kids running around Mendon Ponds. So I'm a young guy, and I'm there, and I got my project adventure bag, and I got my list of my activity in my pocket, and here come the 4 buses down the road, and the organizer, the event, turns to me and says, "Oh, by the way, you're gonna do the opening for us." And I went, "Oh, what if I got nothing?" You know? And so people think, you know, oh, Tuskegee mother invention. So is abject terror too. And, so I went over and I go to the back of my truck. What have I got? What have I got? Because I didn't think I had enough. You're going to stand around in a field, and I know that at any given moment I can be upstaged, no matter how eloquent and engaging I think I'm being. I can be upstaged by a worm or a crayfish or a salamander or a frog, especially. You know, and that's okay. That's actually a really beautiful thing. When that does happen, I love it. Like, oh, maybe E.O. Wilson was right. Maybe Marshall Rosenberg was right. Maybe the love of those creatures and the fascination that we folks have with other living beings is way more interesting than what I got to say. Anyway, so I'm terrified, and the buses are rolling in the parking lot, and I go back to the back of my truck and rummage around. What have I got? What have I got? What have I got? How can I possibly hold the attention of 125 campers aged 6 through 16 for more than 30 seconds? What am I going to do? And I happen to have a drum in the back of my truck. Okay, kids. Everybody be around. Okay, of course, I call everybody. Full circle. Why are we here? Why do they hire us? Why do these older Hindu people think that we should spend a day in the woods with their kids? So this is what I came up with. We go in the Wayback Machine, 2,500 years ago, in the mountains of China. And this man named Lao Tzu is leaving the monastery in town. Nobody wants to hear his good words. He says, man, I'm out of here. And so Lao Tzu starts walking off up towards the mountains where he's going to go off and he's going to pray and meditate and get in touch with something larger than himself. Stops him. Before you leave, could you please tell us something of what, could you write down what you're trying to teach us here? Even though they didn't want to hear good words, I do. So he's like, all right, I'll do it for you, pal. Because that's how they talk in China, of course. And so he goes back in the monastery and he writes down what we now call the Tao Te Ching. And he opens it up with, in the beginningless beginning, there were no shapes or forms. Only the infinite and unnameable source, the eternal source, indefinable. Whether you calmly see to the core, passionately behold the surface, from mystery into mystery, the universe opens. So he writes down all these wonderful things like that, and he hands it to the gardener on the way out. And because of that ask, we have the Tao Te Ching. And then he heads off into the mountains to pray and meditate and get in touch with something larger than himself. At that same time, still in 500 BC, across the Himalayan mountains in the northern Ganges, as many of you know, there's a young prince who's thinking, man, there must be something more to life than having more than you need in a trophy wife, and wants to know a way out of suffering and stuff. So he goes off into the forest for 7 years to pray and meditate and get in touch with something larger than himself. And when he does attain enlightenment, he touches the ground beneath the great Bodhi tree. He says, the earth is my witness. That's the title of the flyer, thank you. That's pretty interesting. And then fast forward about 500 years, and this man named Jesus, for as much time as he spent in public, many of the Gospels end with him walking off into the mountains or to spend time by rivers to pray and meditate and get in touch with something larger. Fast forward about 700 years, and this man named Muhammad, living in Medina in Saudi Arabia, people hear his good words. He's like, man, I'm out of here. So he goes off into the oak forest, over them covered in oak trees, Arabia, to pray and meditate, get in touch with something larger than himself, and receives, the vision that people should be good to each other, take good care of each other, brings his work back. Around that same time, up in Europe, there was another wealthy young dude who thought, maybe there's more to life than having more than I need in a trophy wife. And he goes to this abandoned, run-down, broken-down church outside of Assisi in Italy. Goes there with his friends, and he finds a great deal of solace and inspiration in the natural world. He goes out there and he prays and meditates. gets in touch with creation. We know him as St. Francis of Assisi. The last one, fast forward now, about 300, 600 years after that, in what is today near Toronto up in Canada, the enemy of the Iroquois people, the Huron. There's a young Huron man, his name is Daganowida, and he's also sitting beneath a great tree. Funny how these things show up. A white oak tree. And he receives a vision that he should bring a message of peace to those warlike Iroquois across the handsome Lake Ontario, and a great peril to himself, as many of those fellows did, and there were women right alongside of him too. He comes across here and he brings a message of peace and founded the Iroquois Confederacy. Great peril, difficulty. Of course, he couldn't die. The women and men met along the way. So that's my history of world religions in under 6 minutes. So the thread of that, as I shared with those Hindu kids at dance, what did they all do? And they're like, they went to the woods. Like, that's right, and that's what we're going to do. To get in touch with something. So one of the beautiful things about working with the Hindu campers, I didn't know this when I first started with them. The buses pulled up. Okay, I've done lots of programs before. We got our trailer canoes or whatever. And then these elderly people started coming off the bus too, and these beautiful long saris and stuff. I'm like, well, wait, I didn't know this was Grandma and Grandpa camp too. And they're like, oh yeah, everybody comes to camp. I said, wow, that's beautiful. I have no idea how I'm going to get them a life check in the boat, but this is really beautiful. So I was telling them, I said, no matter how American you become, you never lose that sense of community and connection. And when the campers started calling me uncle, I was very honored. Just like when the Mohawk and Seneca kids I worked with would call me grandfather. First, grandpa's boy. Okay, but I definitely accepted it as a term of endearment and honor. And I love that they just refer to elders generically that way. It's really beautiful custom. So I said, no matter how American you become, please don't lose that sense of community and that connection. So I'm out walking in the woods with these for as many campers as I had. I'll have some older folks out there preambulating along too. So when I hold up a rotten leaf and I go, well, this is Shiva, gang. The creation and destruction are opposites. They need each other. But this leaf has to decay, and it's not decaying to nothing. It's becoming rich soil. And I'm going to leave here soon, Actuarial table say I got about 2 or 3 decades left, and I need to leave to make room for new life too. So that's Shiva, and it's rotten leaf, and the elders are behind me going, oh yeah, that gels with us. So I work with for Canandaigua City Schools and an alternative high school, and I work with kids that are disconnected from many things, including the natural world. But we all can be, and it's hard to be connected to it. And we do it at our own peril, of course. As Wendell Berry said, good communities understand that the work of the forest is soil building, and they work with those systems, and they don't at their own peril. I know these are frightening times for people that live with awarenesses, like for thinking people, but of course, that have a little bit more awareness of that our fate is inextricably linked to fields and grasses and things around us. And I know that can be scary sometimes. But it's important to still find joy and beauty in being out there. And so that's what I try to do, is just to reconnect kids through Earthworks Institute. I was on the board there for many years. I let them use my home to run programs to reconnect kids and families to the natural world who might not have. But it wasn't long ago. I mean, it's all there. 100 years ago, most of us were farmers. Anyway, so we're just very recently off the way, and we're finding the way back to it. That's about all I wanted to share with you guys. But I'd be very open at spending 30 years around the woods with kids if you have questions about that, or if you want to share your own experiences of powerful connections that you had, I would love to hear it. Yeah.
Can you share any of your just personal knowledge about activities in Rochester?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. Let's get on to that. Yeah.
Or that we can get outside.
Yeah, sure.
I know we went to Bristol. But that's something I know about Bristol.
Right.
Just ideas.
There's so much beautiful, cool natural world right here in our urban landscape.
And especially in the winter.
Yes. And if you have a maple tree in your front yard, if you're not sure, the sugar maple has 5 lobes on its leaves, and SUGAR, 5 letters of the name. Even if it's a Norway maple or some other kind of maple, right now the sap started to run this afternoon. And so you can tap that tree and you can do it in a very homemade way. And I'd be happy to show you, talk to you about that afterwards, because that's what I'm going to do when I go home. So I'm going to get ready for sugaring season. You can do that in your backyard, a lot of backyard sugaring folks. I tell people to move to Rochester. I say, please, in the wintertime, find something to do. Ice skating, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing. But with global warming, because they don't have snow to do that. I can count on one hand the number of days I've had to ski here, and that's tough. And you don't have to have a lot of money to do it either, because you can go to garage sales and get stuff almost free for nothing. But find something to do outdoors, or else you're sitting around for 6 months waiting for like nice weather, and that's kind of a recipe for my house. The best place to be. So I find things to do outside here. Genesee River Gorge is very beautiful, and paddled up it and walked up in it. And sometimes when you're up there, you think you're in West Virginia, you don't even know you're in the heart of this huge Megalopolis, metropolitan area. Edible medicinal utility plants that you can find right here in the urban landscapes. For me, the Seneca believed, the Haudenosaunee, the first people who lived here, believed that if you sit at the base of a white pine tree, a great tree, that it will lighten your spirits. I would extrapolate that to be any great tree. And we have a lot of great trees here, places like Washington Grove, Ellison Park, places like that. You go sit at the base of a great tree, and you look up into the architecture canopy, the cathedral branches. I believe the Seneca was right. So that's something else you can do around here. It's a really rich landscape, a lot of it. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, I just wanted to get everybody talking about ways
Yeah.
that we could actually get outside.
Yeah,
Because
there's
I realize that
Yeah.
as a mom in the snow, like, I don't know, I see it's cold outside and I just stay in.
Mm-hmm.
It's very depressing.
Sure. Something that's good to know is that little kids do really, really well outdoors and in the backcountry too. I know we're not talking about the backcountry. Or backcountry is anything more than 1 mile or 1 hour from a road. But I was scared to take my son when he was a toddler, backpacking and stuff like that. And people I work with said, the kids do fine, it's the parents that are worried about it. The kids will be just fine. And what I found out is that there's no bad weather, just bad gear. That if I wrapped that little dude up, rolled him up like a burrito in enough fleece, and stuck him in a sled, he could pretty much, he loved it. He just was like, oh, but this is fun. You know? So again, was get a number 10 coffee can, fill it full of gravel, put it in the bottom of the boat. Because kids like to throw things. I just throw pebbles out. I know it sounds really benign, but hours of enjoyment and stuff, and you can paddle with your sweetheart, your family, anywhere up the Genesee River, down the canal. We're such a well-watered place. Irondequoit Creek is navigable, all the way back to Panorama Plaza from Irondequoit Bay. So it's right in our backyard. And there's really cheap rentals to be had down at the bay. There's a couple different outfits down there. Bay Creek Paddles, one of them, where you can rent boats, or you can buy a cheap one at a garage sale, like Eric does, like he done.
Bay Creek also has events at times, so you can rent them and they'll take you on tours all the way through there.
Yeah, yep. And if you take a class or lesson from them, they'll give you a coupon for a free rental in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. That's was that personal experience? Yeah. You got lost in the 1,000-acre swamp down there? Yeah, it's easy to do because the cattails are tall. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's easy to do. I was down on the Genesee River when I was a teenager in the cattail swamp, and all of a sudden the water started to suck out of the swamp. And like someone pulled a giant plug at the bottom of the Genesee River, and the water was, and my boat was being pulled through the weeds, and the water was draining out. What's going on? Any guesses? A cement boat was going by. There's still a big commercial ship that comes up the Genesee River. That hull displaces most of the volume of the river. And so, and when it leaves, when it goes past, there's this tremendous sucking thing that comes in behind the ship, and I would get sucked out of the swamp and back into behind the ship. I just saw the conning tower going by. That's how I noticed. I was like, what's going on? I looked up and I saw this building going by.
You set in that? You set up right in by,
Where did I put in?
Yeah.
You can put in at Turning Point Park. That's a wonderful place. When you just watch out for poison ivy. The bull launch is pretty intense there.
yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, a lot of poison ivy. But other than that, that's a great place to put in. Lots of wildlife. Just walking around on that boardwalk is beautiful with kids because there's turtles and swans and
It's like a mile long boat.
yeah,
I
yeah,
wanted to go, I have 2 kayaks, and I go kayaking. And
yeah.
I was gonna say that, like, there's we also have the RG station that's there. And, like, you go up far enough,
Yeah.
they actually will stop there. There's a big cave that's there too.
Oh.
It's
Oh.
way further up.
Okay. Gotta check that out. When I was I lived near there in high school on the river there on the Rundequoit side, and there were beaver and 50-pound salmon in that river. It's the best kept secret though, and nobody knows that there's
I
beaver.
live in North Greece, right on Long Pond, and going back there's some great, really good kayaking trails, beavers and everything.
Oh,
It's pretty neat.
very cool. Yeah.
A question actually. So, are there any, would you have any like recommendations for like camps or anything like that for kids?
For like summer camps, or you mean like to go camping with a family with kids, or
Like a summer camp?
summer camp? Earthworks Institute has some programs. One's called Running Wild. That's really fun for kids, and they variety of they got after school programs, summer and summer week-long camps too. Who else is running? Girl Scouts are going to be starting to do a lot more sort of earth-based programming in Rochester area. Yeah, Girl Scouts are going to be doing a lot of fantastic wilderness skills pieces.
I have a question. So, what can like inner city kids do, like to be, one with nature, to go out in nature, because I work at a school and the older kids are stuck in classrooms all day while the little kids get to go out to playgrounds and stuff, and that can really affect their attitude towards being in that place, So, you have any?
So you're on staff at a school?
I'm a security guard there, but
Okay.
these kids are just entangled in their emotions, and
Sure.
it's hard and
Sure.
get angry.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yes, they do. And some are angry because they're bottled up and has to sit in a hard chair for 6 hours a day.
Yeah,
When we're meant to move our bodies.
yeah.
And we are designed to move our bodies in the natural world too, and to engage with it. There needs to be adult leadership that recognizes the value that those big kids need to move their bodies and get outside too. Now, that's a hard sell sometimes because adults are like, ooh, that's nasty. Okay? The hardest sell I have is with adults. And so like some charter schools and things like that have hired me over the years to come in to design programs to ease people outside, but the people I'm easing are the adults to make them realize it's not scary. Okay? They see the megafauna shows on TV, like I saw Shark Week and I'm not going in that. I asked Hindu kids in Mendon Park, this is, whatever, upper crust kids that, they said, are there alligators in that pond? I said, oh, you must be from Florida. I was like, this kid's like 16 years old and hasn't really, oh, you must be from Florida. He goes, no, I'm from New Jersey. And I said, are there alligators in New Jersey? He said, I don't know. But that's what he sees on Shark Week. So we a lot of the barriers that break down is people's own aversion to the natural food that's icky, that's scary, and for adults have to recognize the value of that. And so if you come from a premise that exposure to the natural world isn't just like a good thing, I believe it's essential to becoming a human being, a full human being. And if we don't live in a vacuum, it's by the good graces of the natural world that I'm even alive here, able to breathe and stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter where you are. You're gonna be drawn to the nature.
Right. And kids will not, or people will not protect or care about what they don't know. So for me, just the most important thing I do as a parent too, but is to just gear down my expectations for like, we're gonna go for this long hike. No, I'm gonna see the world through 2.5 foot tall lens now and just follow this kid to the woods and keep them safe, but that picking up things isn't gross or nasty. Convincing people there's nothing out here that really wants to harm you badly, except mosquito, is kind of tough, or poison ivy. But other than that, there's really not a lot. It's really tough to convince people that there's not bears that are going to jump out at them in Genesee Valley Park and stuff, because they're and that was actually the funny thing about the Hindu thing. When I first started with them, we came to this super mucky stretch of trail, and there were some cultural things I was not tuned into at all. So I'm like, let's not wreck our shoes, let's take them off. So I took my boots off and I go through the mud, and this feels fun. People pay money for this in New York City, and I get to the side, turn around, and my entire group, and they come off the bus like they're dressed for a tennis match, right? Very, very lily white, shoes and everything, and they're looking at me like, you're crazy. There's no way I'm walking in that dirt or anything like that. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. What I didn't know was that caste system is that getting dirty is associated with other people. But kids are very well born, so to speak, right? And that they don't get dirty. But so if I can get them to lay down on the grass, and if I can sort of plug into their cultural reference points a little bit and say, how many people here know what Shavasana is? Because they all do yoga. I'm like, oh, I'm like, hey, we're going to do Shavasana here. Meaning rolling around in grass. But I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say, let's do Shavasana now. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then they'll lay down in the grass. So convincing people that nothing bad is going to happen to them is a big part of it. And just being with the kids, like letting them find joy.
Yeah, that's the thing that teachers feel like there's a certain way and this and that. It's just they're expressing, they're trying to express who they are, and it's hard when you try to hammer down education into them, and it's very difficult.
I'm going to recommend a book to you that's been super useful to me. It's called Last Child in the Woods by Richard Louv, and it's a case for what he calls nature deficit disorder. And there's research in there that shows that kids with ADHD, emotional behavior diagnoses, and things like that all benefit enormously from time. It's one of these people that can draw this beautiful threads of connection, meaning through all these different studies and things. Whether it's patients in a hospital that actually have a view of green space, to that these long, big studies that show that exposure to the natural world is super helpful. It is no wonder have come into this world of stuff. Henry Thoreau intuited this, okay? He said, when my feet begin to move, my thoughts begin to flow. And what brain research now shows us is that the hippocampus, or the cerebellum that traffics movement also traffics thought. So if we want kids to learn more, we gotta make it move their bodies. And I see the results with my students. I have 8th graders that are over 300 pounds, that are morbidly obese, and we don't even address that at all. We just educate from the neck up. And what they don't realize is when this moves, the rest of this works way better too. And Henry Thoreau just intuited it. He knew, like, when my feet begin to move, my thoughts begin to flow. So if you are outside with kids, or you can get kids outside,
or at least mention it to teachers or principals to see if they could.
Absolutely. And I've consulted with administrators and things like that to help design programs or safe ways to take kids outside, and everything will be all right. But if you're outside with the kid and you share your marvel, you share your wonder, you pick up the little centipede, the detritivore or something, and let them crawl around and stuff. Even if they just watch and go, ooh, they're gonna watch because they're fascinated.
Absolutely.
And if you tell them that, ooh, before you that I was so. A long time ago, and I got to hike with other people that knew stuff that I didn't, which was wonderful. I love that. And I was with an entomologist from North Carolina State University, and I was like, "Ooh, a bug," And he's like, "Wait, her ovipositor's distended. It's very vulnerable right now." I was like, "Oh, well, I can't squish somebody's in labor, So I was walking, and then I see a bee on a tree, and I'm like, "Ooh, a bee!" And he's like, "Wait, the bee only has a limited amount of energy. It's resting. It might not make it back to the hive." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Good luck, little bee." And so, but he had to sensitize me to it. He had to dial me into what's. Yeah. And it's like, You know, and that's what your school kids will probably do. They see a bug, they're hardwired to. And we just came out last week that 40% of insect species are in decline around the world, which is really frightening because we need them for our food and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, especially bees.
Yeah.
Oh man, that'd be bad.
That's the bellwether species that we know about, but there's a whole bunch of we're just learning now are in decline because of environmental toxins and stuff. But anyway, that's we know the bad news. Yeah.
I was wondering if you would be interested or able to come to the Wilson Foundation and maybe do a talk to the teachers and the kids and possibly maybe any teachers. So I'm a volunteer manager of Grow Green Rochester, which is a community farm and edible food forest with year-round access to a greenhouse.
Fantastic.
And it's it's not a part of Wilson Foundation.
Right.
It's part of the Southwest Area Neighborhood Association.
Cool. Wonderful.
And they are an after-school and summer program. So aside from holidays, weekends, they have 4 weeks off a year. And we want to get the students, the teachers more involved, the faculty of the school more involved,
Sure.
and as well as the neighborhood. And literally everything you've said is exactly what I'm like trying to.
Right. Right. So there's places like the Gandhi Institute.
Yeah.
And that's my sister's a director there. They're doing a wonderful with
I
local schools engaged there. You've been there?
I just built them up the Bee Pollinator Hotel for one of their board members that's leaving.
Oh, fantastic. For Michael?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. I have one of those houses. But if you want to know how to connect like city kids to get them out and doing stuff, the Gandhi Institute has a lot of wonderful facilitators and stuff like that. Or it sounds like you need to meet this fellow here. He's got here.
I'm also involved in a program or another group called Mankind Project that
Oh, yeah.
helps working with not only men to promote like positive masculinity,
Yes.
positive role models, and also working with. There's other programs for dealing with younger kids, inner city kids, to do that
Yeah.
with some of the programs that you do. We do certain weekends with as well. That's-
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's wonderful stuff.
Mhm.
And the natural world and the formation of a healthy, well-rounded man is, I think, is super important and very close to my heart too.
Right.
Because I noticed that in the absence of that, there's a lot of puffery and a lot of really what I call toxic masculinity,
Right.
in terms of tearing up people like, oh, you're a guy, you must drive around with four-wheelers. And there's nothing wrong with that, they're so beautiful, but they also do it all. So I just see so much toxic masculinity in the backcountry and in people's notion of how, as a man, I can relate to the natural world. By the way, little boy's first instinct, I just say it's to pick up sticks. Because boys are very concerned with their physical powers and the limits of that, Like Wendell Berry said, we grasp more than we can hold. And so I have to tell them right off the box that we're not going to hit living things with those sticks, but I know you want to feel how powerful you are. In a sense, they want to push against things physically.
Further aesthetic understanding.
Find like healthy ways to do that, and the natural world can give us that. Some of the most talented. I talk with a lot of kids that tell me about their mad skills. I got mad skills, and I think about people I know that have. They're incredibly humble. I don't speak only to men, but even women know that. I find close to the natural world, there's no room for conceits that are not grounded in reality and limitations. They work with the natural world, teach you limitations. So if I go into the natural world, years ago I lived in Wyoming in the 80s, and they called it testosterone poisoning. So we found most of our backcountry rescues were for young men. And if I have a conceit of myself that's not grounded in limitations and reality and genuine humility for that through which I walk or paddle, that the river or the horse or the mountain will give me limitations real quick. Will give me real fast. Will give me those limitations. So, like some of the most skillful men I have, the most quiet, humble people I know, because they know those limitations. Right? So that's beautiful work. Touch on stuff, but that's really super important what you're doing. I just showed my students last week a haka, and yeah. Now And they didn't get it, but there's one with subtitles, the wedding haka that's got a ton of views. But if you read the one with subtitles, the haka is a poem of a group of older men talking to a young man, saying, "We see that you are troubled, and we are here to support you." And it's this beautiful, powerful expression of support and warrior energy used in service to community and family. You know, and it's very, very beautiful. And as soon as we're like, "Whoa, those guys look crazy," I'm like, "Yeah, it's beautiful. Look at what they're saying. Why are those people crying? They're receiving this." You know, one of those beautiful. I'll stop out. One of the beautiful ones I ever saw was the Iroquois National Lacrosse team traveled to London a few years ago, and I traveled on Iroquois passports. They almost didn't make it to the airport. But when they arrived, the New Zealand team did a haka for the Iroquois to recognize them as being the founders of the game, that their ancestors bring this game to the world. And to watch that, when these men lined up, giving each other greetings and thanks, and doing this, it's beautiful, man. It gives me chills. These are people who know who they are and how to use their warrior energy in service to others.
So,
That would be cool that the kids do that, sir.
so to kind of bring this around, you know, our theme for this one is "The Earth is My Witness." And, you know, you're in a Buddhist temple, and I'm going to kind of tie it back around to the teachings of the Buddha. So when he's sitting there, he has visions, and it's said that he's tormented by the demon Mara. And Mara is our own fears, thoughts, desires, eccentricities, concerns, all of these things. And so in this time period, Mara comes to him and challenges him with a series of tests, just the same way as later that a version of that story was kind of folded into the story of Christ and the temptations by the devil. And in the seminal moment, the Mara says to the Buddha, "Okay, who's going to back you up? Who's going to attest that you have found this understanding of cause and effect and the nature of the universe?" And behind him are hordes of demons, these other voices that we hear within our head that says, "You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're never going to make it." All of these things. And they reach and they loose arrows at the Buddha. And as the arrows come, the Buddha sits placidly. And the arrows become blossoms and fall next to him. And at this point, Mara is so frustrated. He says, "Who's going to attest that you know anything about this? That you are this enlightened being?" And the Buddha calmly touches the ground. The ground shakes and quakes. He says, "The earth will be my witness." Because this is the mother that we abuse. This is the mother that we dig holes in and we take it for granted. But this is the mother that nurtures us and cares for us and knows all there is to know about us, and we are no different than her. And so in the end, in that seminal moment of "Who do you think you are?" the Buddha says, "The earth knows me." And so it's this connection that I think is so amazing. And we have to remember in a variety of different avenues, and I think that the purpose of all of this is to inspire each of you to go out there and in your own ways influence your society in this mind, body, spirit connectedness, this interconnectedness of doesn't have to be connected to the natural world to see how you fit in this greater cause, right? You have to be connected to the human sphere to see how you fit within the cathedral of man. You know, we are all interconnected, and if we don't recognize that we need to be in touch with the earth as much as we need to be in touch with ourselves, as much as we need to be in touch with our neighbor, as much as we need to be in touch with our food, our environment, all of these things, we're all speaking the same language, whether it's the language of body kinesthetics and blood flow, to the language of nature, to the language of the biome, of not only the stomach, but of the land as well. So we have this amazing opportunity, all of us, to keep supporting each other, bringing in more speakers. Each of you know somebody that's got a piece of this. Bring them in. And those of you who come to speak, come again, right? Come support. Maybe you'll be inspired to tell another person and another person and another person. Because the goal is to do what we're talking about with DJ's information out. Right now it's in this room. But the goal is to get it out there in the inner city of Rochester amongst everybody. Understand that just by stepping outside, you heal your soul. Just by spending time with good and loving people, you change your biome and they change yours. Now, we are all interconnected in a level that we don't even understand. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any other questions? Any observations or insights that they'd like to share? Please.
There's something that we would do in the Philippines, and we have a great respect for the earth and our place in it. And I feel that this is something that keeps us really calm, is that we spend time among the trees. We have our mat, and we'll actually take a nap there. And not just us, but sometimes we do it as a family. So there's really no room for us to be crazy when we go and rest, so we don't bring phones and all this noise with us. And then we make sure we have food, because angry people are not nice people. So it's something that we do, and I feel that it helps a lot to come together, not just for ourselves, but for our family, and just take the time to be out there. And we would do that, and sometimes we'd get to the point where we're singing, and then we play games with the kids. We just make it like one whole day, and I feel that it's helped us a lot. I mean, we're not perfect, but have a connection with the earth and be able. For me, I stay connected to the earth because I feel that whatever I have carried around, I can go and give it back. So all the pain, anxiety, I can give it back to the earth and then receive love from it. So the I've been carrying around, I give that to the earth, and then the earth gives me back peace. And just like you say, humility, that I'm just one little part in the world. So that's something I miss, but I'm glad that you are making us aware of it and helping us stay connected with the earth.
And follow off of that, and just exactly what you said, but the point of this was that we could still do all of that here in the city when you can't drive, you can't get out, or, you know, when we go home on Sundays sometimes, if Xander falls asleep, he stops and I go for a walk on my own, and he just sits in the car
A Duane's move.
with baby.
Here,
And, you know, I've had to find a way to force myself to get outside, even if it's for 5 minutes. But anyway, sorry, I went backwards. The thing that you're saying is absolute proof to me that any of us can get outside. Because when I was in Hong Kong, that cultural phenomenon that you're talking about, it had nothing to do with being in this lush green country. They're not, the people in Hong Kong, the Filipinos, would still go outside and find the nearest like median. I mean, just green space, and as families, as groups of friends, and go sit and picnic and fall asleep on blankets and hang out on Sunday. Like, it didn't matter. They said a million people. They would find their friends and they would go. The park might be the size of this room. The park might be the green thing in the middle, and there might be one tree in it. And you can lay your little picnic out, you lay your little blanket out, you're next to that tree. So if they can do that in Hong Kong, what she's talking about, like, we can do it here. And we can, you know, even if it's just the local, like.
Well, what I
whatever
found
green space.
really helpful is U of R. It's easy to get to on the bus line, but once you go back there, there's trees. You pick out a tree and you just lay there. And then there's times too when I do Tai Chi, and at the end of 25 minutes, it's like, okay, what is this Doriga Rochester? You're trying to make my heart, you know, give me a heart attack, and by the time I'm done, it's just.
We live in a really unique area in Frederick Law Homestead. You know, the park's designed here in Buffalo. In fact, all of Buffalo is basically designed by Frederick Law Homestead, the way that it's laid out. But, you know, we're in an area where from pretty early on, they really valued green space and parks and things like that. So we, you know, I'm a kid from Texas. You know, I grew up in Texas, was maybe in the 40s, maybe downtown, and everything else was, you know, built from 1970 forward almost. So all the old stuff here and the stuff that's been set aside for green space and just the size of Durant Eastman, I didn't realize how big it was. I never seem to be able to fathom it when I'm in a park, but then I look at a map and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of space here. So we live in a really amazing place, much less the fact that, you know, when I moved here from Texas, I thought New York, I thought it was all New York City. I didn't realize it was basically Kentucky with of cities, but it's exactly like when I lived in Kentucky, it's all rural. You know, and I was totally blown away. And Becker's, if it wasn't for New York City, I don't think that New York and Kentucky would be much dissimilar in just about everything, honestly, it seems like to me.
One of those forested states, 70% forested.
It's gorgeous. I mean, I love this place. Totally drawn.
Access is interesting though, because I have a friend that lives here in the city, and I've invited him down to Naples and Pressburg because he's afraid to go down there.
Really?
Yeah, he has brown skin. And he's afraid.
It's great. And what's interesting is that I'm trying to get some of the people from the suburbs and south towns here.
Yeah.
They're afraid too.
Yeah.
And it's all unfounded fear.
Yes.
You know, it's just like I mean, literally, like I've invited people that are like in the PK Bonnet thing. They're like, oh, we can't go to the Hungerford building. That's in the city. I'm like, you live in Pittsburgh. It's not very far.
Yeah.
You know, we got a parking lot. You know, it's not like I'm asking you to walk 10 blocks through the hood. Like,
And it's the best place because the vibe is creative.
Thanks, Josh.
It's artists that live here.
Yeah.
And I mean, that the vibe that you get from the building, nobody's going.
But you know, again,
Yeah.
you could make the same argument to his friend of brown skin. It's just like, dude, nobody's gonna mess with you. Nobody cares. Like,
Well, yeah, and at first I twirled a little bit when he said they would love you, but I wasn't honoring his experience, which is pretty legitimate. A lot of good reasons for that. My sister had a colleague at the Gandhi Institute that when they got out of the conference in Vermont, she would drive to the Adirondacks. There were no-go places for people of color, and rural America is one of them. So as beautiful as New York and the Finger Lakes are, I love the Finger Lakes. I could move in the community different. So that was a real wake-up call for me, and befriending other people that were different. Oh, yeah, and that made me so sad to think about that. There can be a dynamic too where for people that were forced into agrarian, not just through slavery, but through sharecropping, both professions and activities connected to the natural world
are considered
right, Jim Crow.
Yeah.
And I did not know that. And that there's a reason why communities become disconnected from the natural world. They're pretty recent and powerful and stuff. So that's all we've been learning from me in the last 10 years. I try to get friends from people to go to public park and make class for their car, you know. And like, no, it's actually beautifully multiplied people. And I can chortle about that. So there's a long history why things are what they are. In Rochester, you know.
So you got a long history.
Yeah, but it bears on the discussion of access to the natural world and why there's barriers, not just physical ones, but there's some real social barriers to not connecting to it, and why things are considered nasty and unclean. So,
And emotional barriers.
the harbingers of an agrarian past that we don't want to be associated with anymore. So, there's a project in DC too, that urban farmers are trying to reclaim heritage of brown skin people farming in this country by raising African vegetables were brought over by African slaves, and that's a really beautiful thing that they're up against that old idea.
And that's something that you and I talked about it, you know, this idea of trying to break the code to get people in the inner city to start growing their own vegetables and becoming self-sufficient. I mean, you go 3 generations back and people did that.
Yeah.
You know, everybody did.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a house anywhere that didn't have vegetable garden in the backyard. Of course you have vegetable garden.
So I've been dealing with that on all sides. When I started my roots out of landscaping, and one of the bank managers, when I was going to set up my bank account, said, "Aren't you afraid of being shot?" And I said, "For growing food for people?" And I said, "Absolutely not." So, fast forward a couple months, and I'm actually volunteering at the greenhouse. This was 3 years ago. And, I'm meeting my neighbors, slowly finding out they're all mostly from the South. They're all immigrated or their family has very recently, so they have very cultural ties back to their homeland. And I still have a hard time getting them to the space because fortunately, however you look at it, I'm white. So because I'm white, there's a lot of these cultural ties. So I try to bring up, anybody that's interested, and it's mostly white people. So now it's becoming a white space. So now I have to be cognizant of that, and I can't just make it a white space. So I have to find ways to intermingle the community. So we give out 90% of the produce, and then the 10% that comes from the sales is entrepreneurship for the kids part of the program. And then it goes right back into the community, creating jobs. There's the Buddhist temple behind us. They've had their own cultural infractions, and now they're divided from the community. And they reached out to me because they saw the in my eyes, the little amount of work that I'm doing directly with the community as something as phenomenal and barrier breaking, because what they've been used to is quite literal bricks and rocks and, quite physical violence. And I would say most of that is unfortunately because of misunderstandings. And if we go a little bit further, the race riots in LA, a lot of that was against,
immigrants who are taking jobs, they perceive as taking jobs,
and then they're sending that money
success.
back home as every other immigrant did naturally back before it was currency to do so. You would come to America, work for your family, send that money back home, and now commonplace, now you're taking money out of my neighborhood. Now you're taking money out of my family. And you're sending the money back home to take care of your family, which is great. And we should all be able to understand that, but we can't because of this cultural divide that none of us put ourselves under. It's the way the American populace has grown.
I mean, maybe you're already networking with these folks, but I know a tremendous resource from my sister in the Plex neighborhood, the Got Me Institute, for the elder living in the neighborhood. If you want kids in your neighborhood to grow greens, I would ask those women, what greens did you grow? Would you be willing to share your recipes or teach the kids on it? If you get those ladies involved in your band, and so you are coming from there.
Yeah.
That is,
place that you should go is go over to Gladys's and get to know them.
I'm compiling a list of places that I want to go to. So one of the projects that we're going to have the kids start to do is ask their parents about their cultural history. Now the parents are talking to the kids, the rest of the family is talking to the kids. Kids are finding out who they are. We're going to compile that data, and on top of other community beds, for the temple behind us, I only think that I'm heavily Irish, even though it's like minutely what I am. I would like to have an Irish bed. I would like to have different cultural heritage beds. So let's get cultural seeds from these beds. So the kids, the family, the neighborhood, everybody can learn together. We're going to do practices. We're going to find tools. And I eventually want to get it to such a heritage cultural practice that it's grown. So we'll see potatoes or collards or tomatoes or peppers grown in different beds. We'll see how they scientifically grow differently. So now I've got STEM education. More so, these kids are getting in the ground to who their ancestors were, because like the Iroquois, the Haudenosaunee, they have the belief of the 7 ancestors, 7 before us and 7 after us. And we need to think about all of them and what we do in everyday life. And that's something I'm trying to emulate, and I'm learning daily, and that's kind of what brought me here today. trying. It's a lot. But we're connecting, you know, we've got U of R students who are helping with us. So we've got a fence in the front that says welcome in all different languages, so authentic that we ask whoever writes that word welcome from that language that they are, you know, from that land, or their family is from that land. So I have not painted that fence other than the rainbow behind it. We've got it to say on the other side in different skin tones, the words welcome. Everyone is welcome here, as well as in Spanish, because we have a heavily populated Spanish area and none of them speak English. We're making a harvest map so people can come out, and we are trying to find these groups who have their own community, like Refugees Working for Refugees, who have that and make it a space that they can come when I'm not there, when our group isn't there. So it's a space for everyone, and it's not, you know, it's for everyone. We've got events, and we're trying everywhere and trying to get, you know, a group of people to help out with the core tasks. And
So for those of you who don't know, this is Rawson. Rawson's going to be one of our next speakers, hopefully, and he's doing some really amazing things. We're going to go ahead and wrap up this part for the filming and such. Please feel free to stay, continue the conversations. Mingle, then you have to
We have
start.
a tea left if you want to mingle
We
and
have-
chat.
Exactly. So if we could all put our hands together and just thank DJ and Ross and everyone who came to participate and share in the conversation. So thank you all very much. We'll be announcing the next one soon, so we're looking for our next speaker. So thank you very much. All right. You guys can continue.